Hello everyone, this is Stephen Balch, your instructor for Computer Applications Online at Ozarka College. In this video, I'm going to take you through the first few pages of Access Module 1. Alright, specifically, I'm going to work through the steps on pages AC 1-1 to 1-23. Okay, so if you haven't already kind of read through the module, you'll need to do that first before working on this assignment. And basically on page 1-1, it talks about what a database is, just a collection of data that's organized in a way that allows you to easily access and retrieve it and use the data that's in the database. And of course, Microsoft Access 2019, which is what we're using in this module, is one of the more commonly used database programs that businesses use today. Specifically, Access is a database management system, and it talks about that on page 1-1. So just kind of read through that. In this module, what we're going to be doing is creating a database for a veterinary clinic. And so we're going to need information about the owners, which are basically our customers, and the patients, which are the animals, and then the appointments table, and also a treatment cost table we're going to create, and a veterinarian's table. Alright, so just kind of look on pages 1-2 and 1-3. It shows what tables we're going to be creating. Okay. And it also talks about on the bottom of page 1-3, it talks about some important terminology in Access, which is records and fields, unique identifiers, primary key. I'm not going to go through that in this video. You need to read through that and kind of understand it. If you have questions about it, let me know. Alright, and so we are ready to create the database for this module. So on page 1-5, what we need to do is click the Start button on the bottom of the Windows screen on the taskbar. Alright, and then click the Access tile on the Start menu. That opens up Access, and it's going to ask us to pick a template for the Access file that we want to create. In our case, we're going to use the blank database template, so we're going to click on that. When you click on the blank database template, it's going to show a blank database dialog box. And in that dialog box, we're going to need to first type in the name of the database. And in this case, the name of the database is CMF Vets. So you're going to type that in, CMF Vets. This is on step 2 on page 1-5 in your book. Alright, so CMF Vets, you're going to type into the file name box. Alright, then you're going to click the little open folder over here, which is the browse button to the right of the file name box. Alright, so you're going to click on that, and that's going to allow us to specify what folder we want to save this database in. Okay, so we're going to go up here and navigate to whatever folder we're saving our work on. In my case, I saved mine on my H drive, and I've got a folder for this course, so I'm going to click on it, and then I've got a Access folder in the course folder. Okay, but it really doesn't matter where you save this file. It just matters that you save it in a place where you're going to be able to access it later. Okay, all right. So we've got the folder selected where we want to save it, and we're going to click OK in that dialog box. and then we're going to click the Create button in the blank database dialog box. Alright, and then you're going to maximize your window so you can see what you're doing a little bit easier. Alright, you'll notice what it does when you first go into Access. We've created a new blank database. It opens up a task pane over here on the left hand side, and that's called the navigation pane over here, and it will refer to that several times throughout the module, so you need to kind of understand, that this over here on the left hand side where it shows the objects that are in the database, that is the navigation pane. It's called that because it allows you to open and close various objects in your database. In other words, navigate in your database. Alright, you'll notice it also starts you off with a table 1, a blank table, and we're going to use that table 1 in just a minute to actually create our first table. Alright, so if you'll notice on pages 1-6 through 1-10, it just kind of talks about some of the ways that you can create tables in Access. Specifically, it talks about naming tables and fields, about the primary key, about the data types that you have available when you design your table. On page 1-9, it talks about design view and captions. Again, I'm not going to go over all that in this video. You need to kind of read through it. It's pretty well self-explanatory as you read it. If you have questions about it, just let me know. Alright. You'll notice on page 1-10, in the table 1-3, it shows the structure of the owner's table. Okay. When we create a table in Access, it's always a two-step process. First, we need to define the fields, which is also called creating the table structure. Alright, then once we've done that, we can then populate the table. In other words, enter the data into the fields that we've defined in the first step. Alright, so what we're going to do is on the bottom of page 1-10, it wants us to right-click the column heading for the ID field to display a shortcut menu. So you'll notice up here in the table 1 that it starts us off with, there's an ID field there. Alright, you're going to right click on that, and then you're going to click on rename field on the shortcut menu. Alright, then you're going to type in owner ID as the name of the field. Then you're going to click the white space below the owner ID field name that we just typed in, and then we're going to change the data type up here on the ribbon on the field table tools fields tab up on the ribbon in the formatting section. We're going to click the data type down arrow, and we're going to choose short text as the data type for the owner ID field. Alright, then on page 1-12, it wants us to specify 5 as the field size for this field. So over here in the field size box, which is in the properties group of the table tools fields tab sheet here, right now it says 255 there. You need to delete that number and type in 5. Alright, because the field size for the owner ID field should be 5. Alright, in other words, each owner ID is going to be 5 characters. And so that's why we're specifying the field size as 5. Alright. Alright. Then we're also going to need to click on the name and caption button in the properties group, and that will open up the enter field properties dialog box. And we need to specify O_ID as the caption for the owner ID field. So we're going to click on the caption box here, and we're going to type in what's shown there on the third bulleted item under step 5 on page AC 1-12. So we're going to type a O, and it's a capital O, it's not a 0, so make sure you're actually typing in a capital O there as the first part of the caption. Alright, and then just underscore and then capital ID. Alright, and a caption is just basically a way that we can identify a field name with a little bit shorter text, with less information. It just saves some horizontal space in our table if we were to need to print it later. Alright, so we've got our caption in, and then we also are going to type in a description. So we're going to need to click the description box here and type in what's shown there on the fourth bulleted item under step 5. So you're going to type in unique identifier of pet owner. And a description for a field is just basically a way that we can provide a little bit more detail on exactly what kind of data goes in that field. Sometimes the person that creates the database or the table in the database may not be the same person who's actually populating it. In other words, entering data into it. And so any extra information that we need to include in the field properties to identify exactly what kind of data goes in that field is good when you have different people entering data into the database. All right. So once we've got all that done, we're going to click OK, and so we've got our first field defined. All right. And then on the bottom of page 1-12 and continues on to page 1-13, it wants us to define the remaining fields. So we're going to click where it says click to add in that second column of the table. And we're going to choose short text as the data type. And then it's going to add a generic field name in there, or default field name in there called field 1. We're going to go ahead and type in the field name that we want to use for this second field, which is owner first name. So you're going to type that in. Alright, and then you're going to click the blank space below that. Okay, so you may have to click on it twice, but just make sure the insertion point is below the field name that we just typed in. And then we're going to go up here and change the field size to 50 for that field. Okay, just like we did for the first field. And then it wants us, once we've got that second field defined, then it wants us to use the structure that we saw on page 1-10. It wants us to use that to define the remaining fields. So you're going to need to look on page AC 1-10 at table 1-3, the structure of the owner's table, to enter the remaining field names and data types and field sizes and so forth. Alright, so our next one here, our third one, as you'll notice there in table 1-3, is owner last name. So we're going to click on where it says click to add in that third column of the table there, and we're going to choose short text as the data type. And then we're going to go up here and type in the field name, which is owner last name. We're going to click on the blank space below owner last name. Again, you may have to click it twice to get the actual insertion point to appear below the field name that we just typed in. Once you have the insertion point below that field name, you're going to go up here and change the field size. Actually, on that one, yeah, it wants us to use 50 as the field size for that one. Okay, so we're going to type in 50 as the field size. Then we're going to go to the fourth column here, click to add. Click on that where it says click to add and click short text. And this one, the title or the field name is owner street address. And then you're going to click the white space below owner street address and make sure that 255 is the field size for that one. That is the default field size, so we shouldn't have to change that one. Alright, and we're going to click to add for the next column there and click short text, and this one is called owner city. So we're going to type that in, and we're going to click the blank space below owner city and go up here to the field size box and type in 50 as the field size. Alright, then we're going to go to click to add again there, and this one is also short text, and this one is owner state. So we're going to type in owner state and then click the white space below owner state and then go up to the field size box and type in 2 as the field size. Alright, then we're going to click to add our next field name. And our next one is also short text, so we're going to click short text on the menu there. And then the name is going to be owner postal code. And then you're going to click the white space below owner postal code and then go up to the field size box and type in 9 as the field size. And then you're going to go to the next click to add column there. Click short text, and this one is going to be called home phone. And then you're going to click the white space below home phone and then go up to the field size box and type in 25 as the field size for that one. And then you're going to click to add the next field name in. That one's also short text data type, and this one is going to be mobile phone. Then you're going to click to add again and short text, and this last field name is email address. So you're going to type in email address. Then you're going to click the white space below email address and type in 50 as the field size. Alright, now before you move on, it would be a good idea to go in and check each one of the field sizes to make sure they're correct. For example, I forgot to change the mobile phone one, so I'm going to have to go in, change that one to 25. Alright, so if you missed any of those, changing the field sizes, what you can do is basically just click on the row below each one of the field names that we typed in and look up in the field size box and just make sure they're all correct. So that first one should be 5, and then the second one should be 50, the next one should be 50, owner street should be 255. In other words, we didn't change that one, that was the default. Owner city should be 50, owner state should be 2, owner postal code should be 9, home phone should be 25, mobile phone should also be 25, and then email address should be 50. Okay, make sure that you get all those field sizes correct. That's one of the things I will check when I'm grading. Okay, alright, once we've got that done, then it wants us to on page 1-14, it wants us to click the Save button to save the changes that we've made to the to Table 1, and basically it's going to give us a chance to name the table something other than the default name, Table 1, which it started out with. So we're going to actually type in owners as the name of the table. Alright. So in that table name box, in the Save As dialog box there, you're just going to type in owners. and then you're going to click OK. And so now we've got the first step completed in creating this first table, the owner's table. We basically have defined the fields or created the table structure. Now our next step is to actually populate the table. In other words, enter the data into the table. Alright. On page 1-15, it wants us to click the view arrow, and when you click the view arrow over here on the left hand side of the table tools fields tab sheet, it will toggle back and forth between data sheet view and design view. Those are the two main views in Access. So right now we're looking at data sheet view, which is the default view for a table in Access. And then when we click the view button, like it wants us to do, it's going to toggle to the design view. Alright. You could have also clicked on the view arrow and clicked on design view, but you can do it either way. But whichever view you're on, when you click the view button itself, it's going to toggle you to the other view. Alright. Alright. So once we've got that done, it wants us to, on page 1-16, it says checking the structure in design view. Before we actually enter the data into the fields, it's a good idea to use design view like we're in right now to check all of the structure of our table that we just entered. Of course, we already kind of did that in datasheet view, but it's not going to hurt to do it again in design view. It's actually easier to check the structure of your table when you're in design view, because you can kind of see everything in one place. So just, basically look at the owner ID field first. It should have short text as the data type. Make sure the description, make sure you type that in there correctly. And then go down and look on the lower pane of the design view window. You'll notice it shows the field size and then the caption that we typed in for that field. Alright. And then once you have the owner ID field checked, then just basically click on each one of these field names and check the data type and the field size for each one. Alright. It actually goes quite a bit faster as far as checking your fields in design view. Alright. On page 1-16, it wants us to close this owner's table. And to do that, we're just going to point to and click on the close button for the owner's table on the right side of the window there. Alright. And that just basically closes out of the table, but we still see the table name over here in the navigation pane. So we've created the table, we've just closed out of it so that we can work with it in a different way now. Alright, so on page 1-17, it wants us to add the two records to the owner's table. Alright, which again I said is kind of the second step in creating a table, where you're actually entering the data into the fields of the table. Alright, so it wants us to right click on the owner's table in the navigation pane. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then on the shortcut menu, you're going to click on Open. Alright. Now, instead of right-clicking and clicking on Open, you can also just double-click on the table that you want to open in Datasheet View, and it does the same thing. It just opens up the table in Datasheet View, where you can then enter the data into the fields. Alright. So at this point, what we need to do is we're going to close this navigation pane by clicking this little shutter bar open close button, which is right here. Alright, we're going to close that navigation pane by clicking the shutter bar open close button just temporarily, while we're working on the entering the data into the fields. Alright, and then what you're going to need to do is look on page 1-17 at figure 1-17 there, and it shows you the two records that we need to enter into the owner's table. So you're just going to start with the first field there, and the first owner's ID there is a capital O -1, and then you can use the tab key to move from one column to the next. So once you get that first one, the data for the first field typed in, you're just going to press tab to move to owner's first name, and then you're going to type in Ted as the owner's first name. Then you're going to press tab and then type in the owner's last name there. And so you're basically going to do that for each field in the table. Alright? And then owner's street address, you're going to type that in the way it's shown there on figure 1-17. Alright? So 460 West Pioneer Road. And don't worry about if you can't see all of the text in the column right now. We're going to widen out the columns later to fix that. Just make sure you type it correctly. Alright, and then you can check it a little bit closer once we widen out the column widths later on. Alright, then we're going to move to owner city and type in what's shown there. Make sure you take your time on these and spell these correctly. Make sure you're typing everything correctly as you enter this data. Alright, and then the home phone number is 719-231-4411. And then the mobile phone number is 719-888-7735. And then you're going to press tab to move to email address and type that email address that's shown there. Alright, once you get all the data typed in for each of the fields for the first record or the first row of the table, then just press tab and it will create a second row for you to enter the next record on. Okay, and so now we're going to look at the second row there on figure 1-17 on page 1-17 in your book. And so the second one, the owner ID is capital O-2. Alright, then we're going to press tab to move to the next column, the owner's first name. And you're basically just going to do it just like we did for the first one. Just press tab to move from one column to the next. And it's very simple. You're just typing these in. Just make sure, again, you take your time and make sure you type them correctly. And then the phone number, home phone, 670, and then the mobile phone number, 435-777-6219, and then you're going to press tab to move to the email address, and you're going to type in the email address that's shown there. Alright, once you get all that typed in, just press tab and it will move you down to the third row. And once you press tab at the end of a row of data that you've typed in for a particular record, it automatically saves that record in the table. Okay, so you don't actually have to click on save after you type in each record. It will automatically save each record in the table as you enter each one and complete that particular row in the table. The only time that you really have to save a table after you've created the structure of it is if you change the structure later on. For example, what we're about to do to this table to make it easier to read all the data in the table, to kind of widen out some of the columns, we're going to set each column width to best fit, which is actually changing the structure of the table itself. And so when we do that, we will have to click Save to save those changes. But as far as just entering data into the table, that is automatically saved as you enter it. Okay? Alright. So, now we are ready. On page 1-19 at the bottom, step 7, it wants us to close the owner's table. So we're going to click the close button just like we did before. And then it wants us to close out of access. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to click the close button for access. That takes us back to our Windows desktop. And the reason it's having us do this, having us close out of access kind of in the middle of the module, is so that we can learn the special features of access that we need to know about when we open up a database in Access. And you'll see what I mean in just a minute. Alright, so what we want to do is on page 1-22, we're going to go ahead and start Access again. So we're going to click the Start button on the taskbar. We're going to click on Access, the Access tile, just like we did earlier. Now, instead of clicking Blank Database like we did earlier, what we're going to do is look under the recent files in Access that we've had open, and we're going to find CMF Vets, which is the name of the file that we created earlier. And you'll notice instead of opening the Access database automatically, it gives us this little security warning here at the top. This little yellow bar right below the ribbon. And that is the kind of special thing that's part of Access that's not part of the other programs that we've learned this semester. Because Access is the program that a lot of businesses use to store all of their critical data for their business, such as employee data and inventory data and sales data and customer data, all of the critical data for its business, there are a lot of security issues with Access. And so what we want to do is when we open up a database that we've saved previously, we always have to click on Enable Content here to make sure that any kind of security threat is eliminated. Since we know that this is a database that we created ourselves, there's no real security threat to this particular database, and so we're going to go ahead and enable the content. Alright, when you click on Enable Content, you'll see a little security warning dialog box open, and it's going to ask us, do we trust this file? And in our case, we do trust it, so we're going to click on Yes. Alright, and you'll have to do that. You'll have to enable the content when you reopen a database that you previously have saved. You'll have to remember to do that in order to be able to work in that database. To be able to make changes to the database objects, like the tables and so forth, you have to enable the content. Alright? Alright, now we can go ahead and maximize our window here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the owner's table, but before we do that we'll have to open up the navigation pane. So remember, we closed it previously so we could work in the table. So now what we're going to do is click that shutter bar open close button right here on the left hand side of the screen, right underneath the views group on the home tab. We're going to click that shutter bar open close button, and that will open up the navigation pane. And then we're going to right click on the owner's table that we created just a few minutes ago. Alright, then we're going to click open on the shortcut menu. That will open up the table. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to widen out the columns, just like I said we would do earlier. Alright, and just so that all the text appears. Because you'll notice in some of the columns, like owner, street, and some of the phone numbers and so forth, some of the data is not, and like the email address, some of the data is too wide to fit in the column. So we're going to fix all of that by adjusting each one of the field widths to best fit. Alright, best fit just means that it widens out the column enough to fit the widest entry in that column. Alright, so to do that, we're going to basically point to the right boundary of the first column heading and double click, and we're going to continue to do that for each one of the column headings in the table. Alright, so we're just going to point to the dividing line between, or the right side of the column heading that we want to change the column width of. And you'll notice when you're on that dividing line between the two column headings, you'll see the mouse pointer change to a split double arrow. And that lets you know that you're in the right place as far as adjusting the column widths. Once you have that mouse pointer in that shape of that split double arrow, you're just going to double click. And just do that for the right boundary of each one of the column headings in the table. Alright, so each one of the column headings, you're just going to double click. Alright, and then once you get that done, just check all of the data in the fields and make sure that everything is now visible. Once you adjust the column widths, each one of the column widths to best fit, all of the data should now be visible in the columns. Alright, once we've done that, we're going to click on the Save button to save the changes that we made to the structure of the table, and then we're going to close the table by clicking its Close button. Okay? Alright, and that concludes this first part of Access Module 1. In the next video, I will take you through pages 1-24 through the end of the module. And basically in that second video, I will show you how to create the second table, and then how to create the other objects in the database, such as the query and the form and the report. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you.